Welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast that's all about real conversations for real transformation. I'm your host, Kat Polsinelli, professional speaker, MC, and best-selling international author. Here, we tackle the tough stuff, the mud that we all have found ourselves in. We talk about the pivots, the challenges, and the victories that shape our lives and our businesses. From overcoming trauma and finding your voice to navigating life's unexpected twists, we get raw, honest, and open. You'll hear from inspiring guests who share their stories of resilience, healing, and growth. Whether it's breaking through emotional abuse, embracing self-worth, or thriving in entrepreneurship, you'll find connection, empowerment, and the tools to keep you moving forward. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and get ready for stories that hit home and conversations that make a difference. Let's get real together. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Real Chat with Kat. I am so excited to have you here with me today. And today I have a little bit of a different conversation, which I am super excited about. So if you've been following the podcast for a while, you know that I have a plethora of amazing people on the podcast. This one specifically, I am so excited about. So if you are a parent, if you are an aunt, an uncle that has nieces and nephews and things like that, maybe you're the person that takes care of someone's kids, you're a foster parent, definitely make sure that you tune in majorly today because this is going to be a really cool conversation. And Alisha and I were just talking about this, things that we didn't have conversations about when we were kids. And I don't think that a lot of people still do. I know that I have now that my kids are a little bit more grown up, but like when they were younger, I definitely didn't know how to have those conversations. So this is going to be a really cool one. I think that like everyone is going to be educated, including myself, on many things today. So thank you so much, Alisha, for being a part of the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I love your energy. I love the conversations you have with people. So I'm delighted to be here and I can't wait to
Oh, thank
talk about
you.
sex.
I never thought that would be said on the podcast. This is going to be great. Okay, so I'm going to let you then do everyone a favor and introduce yourself. So go ahead and tell everybody who you are and what it is that you do.
Yeah, my name is Alisha Lunsford, and I am a sex positive parent partner. I help parents talk to their kids about bodies and sex and sexuality, things like consent, body safety, pornography, masturbation, all of the things. And I help parents say these things to their kids in ways that are age appropriate and shame free so that like we don't have all of that like shame and fear-based trauma trickle down to our kids.
I love this so much. And I feel like I am definitely in that realm of like I didn't know how to have that conversation, especially being a single mom of boys.
Oh, yeah.
That was a whole new realm of things. Luckily my husband was gracious enough to kind of tell me some things and I was like, I'm sorry, what? He was like, oh yeah, I remember blah blah. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, those are new experiences. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but I think it's really interesting that I do believe that we have parents nowadays that there are some that are very open with their kids
Mhm.
that do have some conversations and we still have a lot of those that don't know how to have that conversation because it was never had with them, right? So we kind of fall in this in between and I think that a lot of us unfortunately heavily lean on social media and Google and all those things to kind of answer those questions because we don't want to because it makes us feel weird and icky. So I have to know before we jump into this whole conversation, okay, how the hell do you get into this is I want to talk to I want to talk to parents about how to talk about sex and all the things in between to our kids. I have to know this backstory.
So I truly did not ever think that this was going to be my route, my path. I grew up super duper conservative, like purity culture. We didn't have these conversations, as did my husband, in a different realm. But and so I'm also a sexual assault survivor. Now, with those two things being in the background, when our youngest daughter was 4 years old, she was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. And so we were put in a situation where we had to talk to a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old about their bodies and the female reproductive system and what the hell was going on, and like, just like explaining things and helping them understand to a 4-year-old
Yeah.
and a 6-year-old. And we had no clue how we were supposed to do this. And I had quit my job so that I could be with her when she was going through her treatments. And I had a lot of time on my hands. So we would spend like a week at a time up in at the children's hospital for her to go through a treatment. And so for all week, we would just be sitting there. And so I did a lot of like deep diving into like parenting, how to talk about these things, that kind of stuff. And I realized that we were already way behind. Like at their ages, we already were
Really?
behind in having the conversations because we weren't even talking about like their bodies or anything. Um, and then I came across the statistics that really just like put me solidly into this sphere, was that so like the Netherlands, for example, they are known like worldwide for being top notch in sex education. Like they are doing the
Oh,
thing, they're doing it really well. They start with consent, like in preschool, and they have
wow.
some of the absolute lowest rates in the world of all developed countries in sexual assaults and sexual violence and teen pregnancies and STI transfers and abortions. And then here in the US, we're near dead last. Like we suck at the sex ed. Like we are really bad. And we have among the absolute highest rates in every single category: sexual violence, sexual assaults, STI transfers, teen pregnancies, and abortions. And for me, being a sexual assault survivor and raising two girls, I was like that's
Mm,
it. Like we have to talk to our kids about bodies and sex. And that can literally create safer communities. That can it like it makes our it helps our children be more confident in their bodies when they do decide to have sex, which comes later than kids who don't have a sex positive environment. They're safer about it. They later report that they felt ready for it. They have better sex lives as adults. They avoid pornography. And it's just like all of these benefits, just if we could get over ourselves and have these conversations with our kids. So, and coming from like a super conservative background where we didn't know how to have these conversations, I get it. Like it sucks. It's hard. And I couldn't even say the word masturbation for ever. Like even when I was working with parents, even then I was just like, I would just be like, "Ooh, I hate that word." And so like I
hmm
get that there are things out there. I was in my 30s before I knew the difference between a vulva and a vagina. Like so there's like no shame because this is how we were raised. We just don't know. Um, and we obviously want the best for our kids and don't want that to trickle down to them. So that's where I just started. Really, I just was like gabbing to everybody. Did you know? Did you know? Oh my God, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, you should do something with this information. Like, we all know it because you tell us all the time, but like, you should do something with this information to get it out there. So that's where it all came from.
That's
That's where we're at.
crazy. I love that. And I came from a very conservative family as well. Like my family is Catholic. And so sex and any of that was not a conversation, right?
Mhm.
Birth control was an absolute no-no. You just were expected not to do anything because that's just what you were supposed to do, right? And I remember, and I've told my husband this before, and he's always like, "Really?" And I'm like, "You have no clue like how uneducated I was and naive on all the things, right? Like, yes, I remember doing some type of sex ed thing in gym class, where you got to watch a baby be birthed. That was horrifying. And then they show you all these different genitalia that have warts and everything else, right? Like, it was just meant to scare you,
Yeah.
but I don't feel like I learned anything from it, right? Like, I know, and this sounds crazy, but I know that because my family and I, we didn't really have the conversation once I got my period and all that stuff. I actually didn't learn like the whole cycle of like when you actually ovulate and when
Mhm.
you get pregnant the easiest until I was in my 30s when I
Mhm.
started doing my own research. I didn't know. Like I was lucky to figure out that like you have a cycle and it's anywhere between 21 and 12. They say 20 days. Mine was 31. That you're supposed and that was like all that I knew. So unfortunately, because I didn't have that information and I was not taught consent, we were not taught boundaries. We weren't taught how to say no. It was more of a this is what's wrong and this is what's right, and so you should be able to like stand up. But there were no conversations with me or my sisters about that. Fast forward to being 15 and being in the first like real relationship, right? Because everybody had a boyfriend, so all of a sudden I needed one too. And I remember him pushing boundaries. I mean, not knowing how to say no, right? And I remember things going further than what I was comfortable with it happening, but I didn't know how to say no, which ended up with me being pregnant at 15 and a half. So I had my first son when I was 16. And again, I had zero clue. It's zero clue how that worked. And because I was so ignorant and naive, I also trusted that boy to know the same things and know like what to do and what not to do and how to not get me pregnant. So, like that was just the realm that I lived in and I lived in it for a really long time. I had someone that was on my podcast a while back that talked about menopause. And even in the conversation of that, we were talking about your cycles and these different things. And I was like, I still don't know any of that stuff. Like,
Mhm.
now there's like these conversations about like you have the lunar phase and you have this. And I'm like, I still don't understand
Yeah.
any of
Break
that.
this down more.
Yeah, like it's really
Yeah.
interesting because I feel like us as adults are being educated on all these things as well. But I want to come back to something that you said in the very beginning. So you said that when your children were at the ages of 4 and 6, correct? That
Mhm.
you said you were already behind in the
Mhm.
conversation. Fill me in. What does that mean? Why were you already behind?
Okay, the number one way to deter predators away from your child is to teach them the actual names of their body parts, all their body parts, like the actual names. And the reason is because it tells predators who are legit almost have like a checklist of what they look for when they're targeting children. Um, it tells them that they have an adult, that child has an adult in their corner, that child talks to a safe adult about their body. And that safe adult is not afraid to have body conversations with that kid. So um, don't use like the wee wee or the hoo ha, like use the words, because that tells any potential predator that your kid has an adult in their corner that teaches them these things, and that they can talk to that adult about their vulva, their vagina, their penis. um so when I say we were behind, we were still doing like head, shoulders, knees, and toes, and skipping like from armpits to knee pits,
Mm-hmm.
and so just like that's the number one thing. If they can point to their head, if they can point to their feet during diaper changes, you can be teaching all of these actual words. And the more you say it, the more it's going to be normal for them and they're going to say it. And so, yeah, so when I was saying we're already behind, like you can teach a 4-year-old what sex is. Like you don't have to go into like erections and orgasms, like none of that, but you can teach a 4-year-old that there's an egg and there's a sperm, and when they come together, it makes a baby. And probably for the most part, they're going to be like cool and run off and never really question how that sperm and egg are going to even get together in the first place if they're in two
Mm-hmm.
different bodies for probably a couple years. Um, so there are ways to teach your kids things that are accurate, that are factual. And all kids are so curious about the body, about their own body, about other people's bodies, especially pregnant women's bodies. Like all kids are like, oh, how did it get in there? Like
Yeah.
how's it getting out? And these are things that like we don't have to sexualize everything. We can just give them facts. And these are things that I wasn't even comfortable talking to my husband about these things, let alone my kid. So when I say we were behind, is that we were just going with it. Like we weren't teaching
Mm-hmm.
them hardly anything, like um we did talk about consent a lot, like if they say no, the answer is no, that kind of thing. Um, but other than that, it was just we didn't have any sort of game plan. We were just kind of like flying by the seat of our pants, which were ripped and not doing very well. So,
Well, and I remember that too because you get it in your head as a parent, like, oh, okay, they're not mature enough to have
hmm
this conversation, and then you kind of like push it off, right? And
hmm
what I think is really interesting, and I just recently learned this as well several years ago, was using the actual body part terms. And I remember talking to a really good friend of mine who had a little girl. And we were on the phone one time and we were kind of touching base. And she was like, yeah, we've been talking about body parts and stuff like that. She was like, and I'm teaching her the words. I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, well, I'm teaching her that she has a vagina, and that this is a penis. And I was like, I was uncomfortable with my friend talking. And I was like, why?
Yeah.
Because I had boys, and even though I had two younger sisters, like we always used your private parts, right? Like that was
hmm
the term we used.
hmm
Which I've also heard in some cases that makes it feel like it's a forbidden zone, which can lead to issues in adulthood, which we can touch base on that in a second. And I was like, that's absolutely crazy. But one of the reasons why she said that when she had her little girl, that she wanted to teach her the names of the body parts was because she had read about a story of it was a little girl. I don't remember the age, but I remember that she was in daycare or preschool, something like that. And she kept talking to her teacher about her uncle, and her uncle liked to touch her cookie, and her uncle this, and the teacher was not putting it together
hmm
until she said something that was kind of really weird to use the term cookie, and that's when she had the conversation with the parents. And come to find out, they were using cookie in terms of vagina. They were replacing it. And so in other realms of that as well, like I was thinking about that when you were talking about that, like that was so eye-opening for me because I was like, holy crap, if your kids are in daycare or in school or talking to counselors or anything like that, if somebody's not picking up on a word because you give it something really strange and it happens to fit in the context of a sentence, you're like, oh, they're young, they're just being goofy, they don't know what they're saying, and you brush it off like it's nothing, when in reality, they could be trying to tell you something that they don't understand, and you're not picking up on that. And that scared the hell out of me
hmm
to know that that was a possibility, right? Now, my boys were already probably like 10 and 13 at that time, but I was very proud of her and also like very shocked to know that that was even a possibility. I think that, and maybe some parents feel like this and maybe some people don't, but I feel like I want to see the best in the world. And yes, like I know that there are people out there that are predators that are weird, but it was kind of like, oh, it can't be that bad and it's probably never going to happen to my kid, and like I just left it alone, right? And I'm curious to know how many people you've talked to that kind of have this avoidance of it as well, because it's like, oh no, I know my family members and I know the people my kids are around, and that would never happen, like I trust these people. And yet we end up finding so many stories of people doing things that people had no clue about.
Yeah. Yeah. Like 95% of sexual abuse is done by somebody who's close with the parents, who's close with the kids. So, like that right there tells you I, when I talk to parents, stranger danger is a big, excuse me, stranger danger is like a big, um, like key, right? Like everyone's like, oh, stranger danger, don't talk to strangers. When in
Mhm.
reality, the the people who are hurting and harming our kids, they're not strangers. They're the ones we're inviting to the barbecue. They're the ones that are over for family dinners. Um, and the a sexual predator will their goal is to get in with the parents and have the parents trust them before they ever touch that child. Like their goal is to get in and be able to have access to that child from a trusted adult before they ever actually abuse that child. So
Mm,
to say that, of course we want to trust our adults. Of course we want to trust those people that are around us. And just like you had said, saying the names of the body parts and knowing like it's so important because I mean, anything from, first of all, it's clear to you and other mandatory reporters, that they're around what that child is talking about, what parts of the body they're talking about,
hmm
even if it's a body part or not. And anything from like the doctor, like from it's the difference between like a diaper rash and a UTI. Does it hurt on the inside? Does it hurt on the outside? Right? And then again, for the scarier situations, if you have a prosecutor um, that can get information from your child, heaven forbid that ever happen, but that is so specific, this is like, oh, instead of like my front bum, my back bum, or whatever, like specifically
Mm-hmm.
they can tell you what was touched, what was seen, what was touched, it was inside, outside. Um, that is just pure gold ammunition for a prosecutor to be able to prosecute without having to convince the jury that
Yeah.
that what your child meant by these random terms are these other body parts. So there's so many reasons as to how it keeps your kids safe. Um, and unfortunately, there are so many stories of sexual abuse, any kind of abuse that is from people that we know, that we trust. And it's the hard part is that it doesn't even have to be um, like adult on child. Like if there's a child who's even been exposed to pornography nowadays, because pornography is a whole nother realm, like that's a shit
Yeah.
show in itself. But like that has been exposed to this type of behavior, now they're, like playing and trying to figure it out and with other little kids. And not to say that like that is abusive behavior, but you not only can you protect your own child, but you can protect somebody else's child by your kid knowing the terms and using the right words. And absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, it's stuff that, of course, I was uncomfortable. I grew up like with the same thing, like private parts. It was all private parts. That's your private part. And
Mm-hmm.
I still recommend using like your private areas, your private parts. I get it, but like if you can say specifically, that's your vulva, that, oh, look, you found your clitoris. That must feel good. Like if you can say the words in your children, because if you can't even say the words of the body parts, what does that say about the body parts? That they're icky, that they're secret. And that's one of the things that I really love to make a clear boundary is that there's private and there's secret, and they're not the same thing. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
privacy is okay. Everybody deserves privacy. There are parts of our bodies that are private, including like underneath your bathing suit and inside your mouth. That is a private part. And then there's secret. There should never, ever, ever be a reason your kid keeps a secret from you, especially about their body, ever. So if somebody says like, "Ooh, don't tell," you tell. And but the private parts, we keep those private. We don't touch our private parts at Costco. You may touch them in the privacy of your own home or in your bedroom or in the bath or whatever. Um, but and talking about it too. Like we don't talk about our private parts to all of our friends at recess. That's private. You talk to your safe adult, they'll talk to their safe adult. Um, but secrecy is a whole nother thing. And so your child knowing and understanding the difference between private and secret is a big deal because it removes the shame barrier that I think you were talking about. Like the secret is like icky. We don't talk about that because it's bad. It's shameful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if we grow up thinking that those parts are bad and shameful and icky, of course that's gonna like us up, as adults. Like, of course we're gonna be like having issues with intimacy if those are icky parts.
Yeah. Yeah. And I kind of want to step into that as well, while we're on the subject and talk a little bit about for people that have children, but I think this will also apply to individuals that might be listening. It's like, yeah, it does feel that way when I use those terms and stuff like that. And I'm 30, 40, 50, whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
So in terms of, not using language specific, which it's mind-boggling to me how language makes such a difference
Mhm.
in how things mean, how it's projected, how it's perceived, and then how it's also carried into adulthood. Like this is something I've noticed over the last couple of years of like the importance of the language that we use. And I guess it catches me off guard every time of like how important it is in every realm of everything that we talk about. And like you said, not making it something that is shameful, right? Because that's something that I have dealt with for years. Being in an abusive relationship, again, consent wasn't there, didn't know how to say no, certain things, there were things that happened to me that shouldn't have. I've been sexually assaulted by my ex and stuff like that. Like there's a lot that goes around that, and then you pile on top of the way you were already taught to believe it, and then it
Mhm.
becomes extremely hard to also get out of it. So I want to talk about this from your side of it as well. And just so that everyone knows, I am so effing uncomfortable right now in this conversation. So I love you and all the things we're talking about. And like, I myself am so uncomfortable. Like, I'm sweating over here having this conversation. So, thank you for bringing this to the podcast because
Oh, girl, you
it
crack me
is
up. I'm
so
sorry.
needed. Girl, it's not your fault. But I want people to understand that, like, this is what we have to do. These are the conversations that we have to have. And I also want people to understand that, like, I'm a human being as well. And there are things that I'm still learning and growing through and dealing with because of all the things that I went through growing up and in an abusive relationship that, like, even I him having a hard time with like certain words and having the conversation, but it's good. This is a good thing. I don't apologize for it all. I love that you are this comfortable about the conversation and can make it that comfortable for me that we can have a freaking 45-50 minute conversation around this to
Well, and
educate other people.
I want to throw in really quick too. Like, no, this was not always comfortable for me. I mean, obviously, it's taken a long time, but I do not remember the gal who's first I heard this from, but she's fabulous. But I ask parents all the time, like, are you willing to be a little bit uncomfortable in order to keep your child safe? Because that's really what
Mm,
this comes down to. So,
yeah.
yeah, it's uncomfortable for sure. It's uncomfortable, but are you willing to go through that and come out on the other side to keep your kids safe? Because that's
Hmm.
truly, and to make it so your kid doesn't feel this way when they're an adult, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So
So,
just know, audience, I'm uncomfortable for you today so that we can bring this information to, if you guys are listening to, I'm literally fanning my armpits. It's totally fine. So,
oh my
oh
God.
gosh, I like to keep it real. So I like to be very honest. Because I know it can be so perceived like, oh wow, well, she must be super cut. No, absolutely not. But I know that this is something that needs to be heard. So as
Oh,
we
girl.
as we come into this conversation then Alicia of the importance of having these conversations, what is that realm in between? Like if we're not having these conversations, if we're not being uncomfortable for our kids, obviously we understand, right, that part of this is your children could be susceptible to predators. They could be put in positions that might be compromising to them. It can cause them to not understand boundaries or how to say no or understand fully what consent means, right? So that's that child perspective. Now, let's add on top of that, where does that take you, right? From young child to teenager to adult, when we are not choosing to have these conversations, to be open, to use the terms. I want people to understand because I think this is going to relate not only to those that have children and things to be aware of that are preventative and why it's so important, but I also think this is going to touch those on the other side that are like, I already feel like that and I want to turn this episode off, but I
Mhm.
also want to know if it's only me or how do I relate to this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's so I love this question because I feel like there are so many of us who grew up in households like we did, that we were never given these conversations, so we don't know what they're supposed to look like. But also because of that, we all have our own individual moments of trauma about these things, and whether that's because um, we we were abused or there was actual trauma and abuse in our past, or because we can't accept parts of ourselves, like we can't accept that, like, our private parts, our vulva, our vagina are not icky, that they're actually okay, that we can say the words. They're just like, they're literally what the body parts are called. Like a dog has a
Hmm.
vulva and a vagina, right? Like you can, people have it too. So, and I think that that crosses over into just us being sexual beings as a whole, like being sexual humans and just a healthy sexuality and being okay with that and being able to acknowledge and I grew up in a very I grew up Mormon. I grew up super like religious as well. My husband grew up Southern Baptist. So like we've got like between the three of us, we've got like all of the
We had all of them covered. It's fine.
yeah, we're covered. But like that sex is not something that is really celebrated unless you're doing it to have babies, right? Like um or talked about, or if for kids who grow up in sex positive environments, they are a lot more comfortable with just their sexuality in general. Um, and that it's not a bad thing and that it's an okay thing. And the idea of like masturbation doesn't freak them out and make them want to like to hide from the world. And granted, it should be a private thing. Let's just not like no out on the street or anything, but like these things aren't bad. They're normal. They are so normal. Everybody does it, guys. And you don't need to be like telling your story about it to everybody, but you don't need to be ashamed of it either. Like you don't need to feel the internal um like ickiness. And that's what we don't want our kids to feel. Like all of this uncomfortable, like all of this stuff that you're feeling right now, like do you want that? Do you want your kid to feel that way about their own body? Do you want your child to have those same concerns and um, uncomfortable and uncertainties about their own body, about their own relationships? Like it is, if if you if you can raise your child to go into a relationship knowing that they have full consent, not only that like um not only that their decisions and like their voice matters, but the decisions and the voice of their partner also matters. And that's where I think when we have societies that are all well versed in consent, why there's less sexual assaults, because we're raised from a very young age that it's
Hmm.
not just us, it's not just our boundaries that are important, it's everybody has the same, like everyone has the same level of respect owed to their own boundaries and their own body. Like everybody gets to decide what's okay and what's not okay for their own bodies. And I think that's something that is important for adults to understand as well. Like even us, even from our children. And it's important for us to model that for our children. We also get to say what's okay and what's not okay for our own bodies. Sometimes, especially as mothers of young kids, we can feel ridiculously overtouched. And that's okay. And that's okay for your child to understand that. It's also okay for your husband to understand that, or your partner to understand that. And that's not a shameful thing. You're not a bad parent. You're actually being a good parent in modeling that for your kid. That it's
Hmm.
my body, I get to choose. It's your body, you get to choose. It's their body, they get to choose. And so I think I kind of went off on a tangent, but to reel this back, I think so many of us feel this underlying shame that um, like if it's making you uncomfortable, I would ask, where is that coming from? Is it the words? Is it even thinking about that body part? Is it that we're saying this out loud? Like, are you listening to this, turning down the volume or making sure your earbuds are in, like really, so like other people can't hear it? And why? So like, let's figure out, not to say that, you need to come talk to me about that, but like, you need to like figure out where that's coming from and then just explore it. Understand like
Yeah.
what is it specifically that's bothering me? What and why? Like, why is there that underlining? Ugh? And for the most part, I think it's because no one talks about it. It's because we're not used to hearing about it. We're not used to having conversations. We're not used to hearing the words. Well, the more you say those words, I promise the more you're gonna get used to it. So like if when you're in the car by yourself, when you're in the shower by yourself, say the words out loud and just keep saying them until you're not red in the face anymore.
Like I just was. No. But
Like do it
there's
when you're alone so you can stutter over it and like hyperventilate. But like do it.
yeah. And there's the word that you use, which is normal, right? I I feel that in our society, everything is sexualized.
Mm.
so much.
Hmm.
And because of that, there are all these judgments that go along with it, right? Instead of it just being a body part,
Hmm.
which I do, give kudos to in like some of the European areas and stuff where like there are topless beaches. Because why? It's just boobs. Like
Right.
there's nothing, right? Like there's nothing to it.
Right.
Or there's nude beaches that are over that it's just body part, right? Like I love that because I grew up in a realm where showing cleavage is horrendous, or you're a slut, or you're a whore because of that. And there is so much shame around that. And we have to understand that when we're using things like that, we are training our children or the younger people around us how to feel about themselves. Because even though you're saying it about someone else, and I know this personally, I actually, this happened to me probably, it was probably last year because I grew up Catholic. We weren't supposed to wear sleeveless shirts. You don't show bra straps. You don't wear anything that is revealing at all from the top, right? Because that is your private part, and you are, for lack of a better term, you're a slut. You're a nasty person. You're disgusting if you're showing that off, right? And I grew up that way, and that's fine. And I've learned how to be a little bit more open, but I didn't realize how deeply seated that belief was. And so I want to share this because I want people to understand these are the things that happen when you don't become comfortable. So I am 38 years old, and I remember last year we were celebrating my birthday. And so my husband and I were in this downtown area, and we were having breakfast and doing all the things, and we had to wait for probably about 45 minutes before we could get our seats. So we decided to walk the strip and go check out some places. And we went to one of these shops, little boutique shops, super cute clothings and stuff like that. And some of it was a little bit more younger, in my personal opinion. But there were a couple things that I really, really liked. And I generally don't like these kinds of items. And so it was some type of cute little top that came down a little bit, and it was kind of ruffled, and it was way outside of my comfort zone. But I was like, you know what? Like, I really like it. I think it would make me feel really good. And my husband was like, go try it on. Like, please, let's see. So I remember going into the bathroom, and I'm super excited. And I'm like, oh, it's like my favorite color as well. And it's going to look so cute. And I put it on, and I instantly was like, I look like a whore. That was the thought.
Hmm.
And there was
Hmm.
nothing, it's not like my butt was hanging out the bottom of it or anything, but like that was the instant thought. And I remember trying to hold back tears, and I ripped it off, and I came out of the dressing room. My husband was like, Where's it at? I wanted to see it. And I was like, absolutely not. And he was like, but I think it would look so good on you. I was like, no, I'm not showing it to you. And I was like, we need to leave. And he was like, are you okay? I was like, no, we need to leave. Like, I'm done. And I remember leaving the shop and trying to stand down this corner hall, and I was so upset. And he was like, I don't like, he was so confused. And he was like, but I think it would look really cute on you. And I was like, okay, this is what happened. So I explained the whole thing, and I told him how I felt. And he was like, but that's not how you dress. And I was like, I know. I was like, but you have to understand that like this was ingrained in me at a very young age, that this is what you look like if you dress this way. And I said, so I can't buy it because I will never put it on, and I will always look at it, and that's what I will call myself. I was like, now, do I want to get out of my comfort zone? Absolutely. I said, but we got to take baby steps. So maybe it's a tube top and it's covering, but I start to get comfortable with that. Or I literally a couple of weeks after that went and bought half shirts so that
Hmm.
I could show my stomach just a little bit. Not
Like
much.
the
I'm not trying to
cropped.
like hang everything out, but just a little bit of a crop top because I wanted to get comfortable with being okay with showing a little bit of skin and know that I was doing it in a way that was comfortable and I wasn't showing myself off. But I had to have my husband help kind of pump me up to be like, no, that looks really good on you. And I'm like, are you sure? Because I feel like I feel like a teenager showing everything off. And he was like, absolutely not. But like those are some of the things that I've had to learn to work through because of the things that were ingrained in me at such a young age.
Hmm.
Like it really is interesting the way that we talk to our kids and the way that we don't talk to our kids, and we inadvertently make them feel about something, how much that goes with you as you grow up,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
And so anyway, I just wanted to share that because it made me think about that. And I think it's very important for people to understand this is why it's so important to have these conversations with the younger generation, with your kids, hell, with yourself. Find you friends that you can talk about this with so that you can become more comfortable with it, right? I'm not saying walk around with your boobs hanging out, okay? Like, I'm not saying,
Unless you want
but
to.
I mean, she really, but I'm saying like we should be able to be comfortable in the skin that we're in and not feel like everything that we show off means that we're trying to sexually attract people to us. And that's something I've had a really, really hard time with. And again, I still have my boundaries. I'm not walking out in coochie shorts. Like that's not my thing. You know, like there's still things that to me, I'm like, I would never do that because it's just who I am. But to bring it back around to what you're talking about and sexualizing everything, this is also one of the reasons why we get questioned when we go through sexual assault or we
Hmm.
go through domestic violence.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of terms um, and language that is used by law enforcement and the judicial system because we have created this realm in our society where everything is sexualized
Hmm.
instead of it's my body, it's what I want to show and what not to show. And you should be able to have enough control of yourself to act like a decent human being and not feel like you need to fantasize because you saw a little bit of skin.
Hmm.
And so anyway, kind of went off on a tangent then. Bear.
No,
But
I,
and this is perfect timing because, well, you will go live, I believe, in May. But April, for everyone who doesn't know, April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And it's very important for us to destigmatize a lot of these things.
yes, please. Oh my God, yes. And that is what so much of my like passion is about is like the awareness piece of it. And like, can we just stop like stigmatizing these things? Like I think like for sexual assaults, it's like well, what was she wearing? You know?
Hmm.
And obviously it doesn't matter. But and I think it's why it's so important to teach not just our girls, but our boys too. Like
Absolutely.
any person should be able to walk down the street totally nude, and the only thing that should be reported is, oh my God, I think this person might need help. Like this person might need clothing or a place to live or like mental health or something, but it should never be this person is unsafe, you know,
Hmm.
because they're showing off some skin, too much skin, or anything. It's just, and I think that these messages get ingrained into our children at a young age. I know that a lot of parents are concerned about like, oh, that skirt is too short, that you can't wear tank tops, that kind of thing, for really young children. And I'm wondering, like, I know that they want their children to be modest, but what human is looking at a 10-year-old and thinking anything sexual about their body at all? Like, that's where we need to be focusing our attention, that's a
Yeah.
problem, as opposed to like what the girl is wearing. Like, it's so insane to me. The messages that are blatantly being put out, let alone like subliminal ones that we see all the time that we unknowingly pass down to our kids because of our own insecurities, the way that we react without realizing it in front of our kids.
Hmm.
Even saying things like I tell people like don't go on a diet in front of your kid. Tell them you're going to start eating healthy. Tell them that you want to start feeling better. Tell them you want to be
Mm.
stronger. But like, don't ever tell your kid you're going on a diet. Like, and when at what point does like, oh, that cute little baby fat is cute, but like it's not cute on mom? Then your toddler now has to decide I want to be a big kid, but I still have fat. Does that, So there's so much that like there's so much that we need to just be aware of, that the messaging that we have ingrained in us that we are continuing to pass down to our children without knowing it. And then once you do recognize it, it's not, kids are really malleable. Go repair it.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. There's so much internal work that I do with parents, um, that has nothing to do with them teaching their kid about the words just yet, because there's so much internal stuff that we need to get over and we need to focus on ourselves first. before we can do this successfully or feel like we can even do it successfully. um, but it's so important. I more than anything, work with me, don't work with me, whatever. Get a book. Like, get a book, have your kid read it, put it in their bedrooms, leave it on the coffee table, read it with them. I don't care. And then also just the awareness piece of it, I think is my biggest passion project is I just want everybody to know like the good and the bad. Like I just want people to have the information. Like this is what this is doing in our world and this is how we can change it. And let's just change our mindset. Let's just change the way that we think. Let's just bring attention to these things. And I don't know. That's all I got.
It is. I think there's a lot of different conversations that we should be having on a regular basis, which makes it a common conversation. And
Mhm.
therefore, if it becomes a common conversation, it's not hard to talk about it. It's not hard to hear it, but it also makes it easy for you to pick up on
Mhm.
what might be going on, right? If
Yeah.
somebody is talking about something that potentially happened to them, but they're describing it in a way that like isn't blatantly putting it out there, but they're trying to kind of test the waters to try to let someone know.
Mhm.
If all you do is ignore that because you're uncomfortable with it, you are not going to pick up on those subtle hints, right? You're not going to pick up on somebody that is trying to ask for help. You're going to be like, "Oh, that sucks. I can't believe that that happened." And you're going to just move on to the next conversation. Um, versus being able to say things like, "I feel like you're trying to tell me something. Are you okay?
Mhm.
Do we need to talk privately?" Like people are constantly reaching out for help in very, very subtle ways to test the waters to see if you're going to pick up on it, if you're a safe person to talk about it, or if they're if they are trying to tell you is something that they should be saying, right? That is happening all of the time. And I
If
try
it's
to be so mindful now of hearing what people are saying, but then also ask the questions if I'm not exactly sure what they meant by it, to make sure that I'm not missing that subtle hint. You know, a lot of people talk about how, oh, women talk around circles and you got to read between the lines. People do that regardless. Regardless, your kids do it, your teenagers do it, adults do it. These are the things that we need to be aware of. And if we're not comfortable with the conversation, then we're not going to be comfortable hearing it in any
Mhm.
realm. And we're going to
Right.
miss those opportunities to help someone.
Or even if we're not willing to be uncomfortable, like it might be uncomfortable, but we're being willing to have that conversation anyway is, I think,
Hmm.
so important. And I want to throw a statistic out there because on average, a child tells 7 different times if there's abuse or something going on. If a child, they have to tell on average 7 different times before they will be believed that something's
Mm,
going on. And so, and I don't know, like me personally, if I tell one or two people, or by the third one, I'm thinking maybe this is me, maybe it's my, but like
absolutely.
seven, like for a child to be believed. So just 100% like what you just said, like just ask them that extra question. Is this something that we can talk about, or like what are you trying to say or whatever? But the number one most important thing is just freaking believe them. Work out the details later, but
Yeah,
look at them, believe them, and just like hear them, and then figure out all the other shit off the side. But like it's so important, and not just with kids either, but anybody. Like if you feel like something is going on, like please just see that person and ask a second question, even if it's uncomfortable. There's so
absolutely.
many lives not only that you could save, but you could change.
100%. Yeah. I could talk to you forever, Alicia, and
I know.
continue being uncomfortable in this conversation. I do want to make sure, though, that you get a chance to tell everybody about some of your wonderful free downloads that you have. So, for anyone that's listening, that's like, okay, I get all the things. Now, where do I start? How do I even figure this out? I know you have some wonderful things on consent and all the stuff. So,
Mhm.
tell us what some of those are and where they can find it as well.
Yep. So I am at sexpertparenting.org. And I've got, if you go to my resources page, first of all, if you're looking for books, I got books. Like I've got so many book recommendations that you can go to that are fabulous. It's my number one way, I think parents, the easiest way to get in to talk to their kids about anything. Get a book. But I also have some great free downloads. I've got one that's called the Sex Talk Timeline. It tells you like what your child should know by which age.
Ooh.
Which is surprising because I think a lot of people, there's a lot of younger stuff in there that people don't think. As long as you're keeping it age appropriate, your kids can know a lot of stuff. I've got talking threads. It's like weaving in your values around these conversations. One that I think is I get most hits on is the Body Safe Basics for Littles, and it's basically how to keep our children safe. It's like the 5 safety rules for smaller kids. So we're talking about like ages, like toddlers up through about age 8 or so.
Okay.
Safety rules for incorporating into their everyday lives. I've got like how to talk to your kiddos about pornography, and then there's also an LGBTQ, basically like a breakdown. It's called "Don't Panic." It's just pronouns. But there are some great resources out there. Those are mine. Feel free to browse around the website if you want to, hit me up and chat further. I'd love to do that too. So
Absolutely. And we'll make sure that we have all that information in the show notes. We'll make it super easy for you guys to be able to click on that, find that information. I'm honestly going to go find it because I have nieces and nephews and I want my sisters to know about this, right? So I'm going to go grab some of those. But thank you, Alisha, for being so open, so honest, for making this a normal conversation and helping us understand that it doesn't have to be icky. Where can everybody follow you or connect with you online?
So I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn, but less so. Might be waiting a minute if you message me on there. But yeah, go to my website and have all of my information there. But it's sexpertparenting.org. And I'm also Facebook, Instagram, the same thing, Sexpert Parenting, or just Alisha Lunsford. You can follow me on Facebook there too.
Awesome. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for the awesome conversation
Thank you.
today.
And for you, the work that you do too is phenomenal. And I just want to spend a second to say thank you for that
Oh,
because
thank
you are
you.
truly making a difference. And I love it. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Um, oh, I'm at loss for words. So we'll have, thank you, Alicia. We will make sure to have all the information. We'll have her socials as well so that you guys can follow her content and things on there too. And I challenge you to do what Alicia said, which is get comfortable with the words yourselves, start having these conversations. I don't care if you're an uncle, aunt, grandparent, start these conversations now. We cannot make change if we don't start making these normal conversations. We have got to stop sweeping things under the rug, hoping it's not going to happen to us or our family members, and then being surprised when something does. We have got to change the narrative and we have got to put it out there. So please send this to somebody who needs to hear it. Share it with a friend of yours that's a parent. Get the information out there. Let's start having uncomfortable conversations to make these normal so that we can start decreasing the things that are going on in our world. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Alisha, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast. And until next time, do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. Catch you later. Thank you so much for tuning in to Real Chat with Kat today, where real stories meet real solutions. If you loved today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review on Apple, and share this with someone who may also need to hear this as well. Let's also keep the conversation going. Follow me on socials at The Lotus Effect, connect with our incredible guests, and remember, you are never alone. Your story matters, and you have the ability and the power to rewrite it. You always have a choice. Until next time, stay strong, stay inspired, and keep showing up as the incredible, unstoppable